Morphin time! Yeah!
Although we now know what an Omega Ranger is, several years ago the first Omega Ranger appeared in the franchise. In the timeline, he is not the first Omega Ranger, as Omega Rangers have been around for hundreds of years, but he is the first Omega Ranger we were able to meet. This Ranger appeared in Power Rangers SPD in one of the first episodes of the series. At that time, he was a young man named Sam who had the power to teleport any object or person anywhere else. Before telling you the story, we must know the origin of his powers, which he got at the same time that the SPD Rangers got theirs. If you have not seen this series, you should know that each SPD Rangers has a different power. Some of these powers are multiplying to make several versions of the same person, or going through things becoming transparent. Power Rangers SPD is set in 2025, but in 2001, Sam's parents, along with the parents of all the SPD Rangers, worked with Cat Manx to develop SPD Morphers. This experiment had serious consequences and side effects. The terrible thing about this is that the ones affected were not the parents who worked on the project, but their children when they were born. First, all the SPD Rangers were born, and sometime later, Sam was born, which is why in the series the SPD Rangers are already adults, but Sam is younger. The side effects that all the children received were supernatural powers. This is why Sam can teleport anything, and Z, the Yellow Ranger, can multiply herself. Although Sam's power is teleportation, the Omega Ranger's powers are different and can be had by anyone wearing the Omega Ranger suit and morpher. When Sam first showed up, he was a lonely young man, friendless and trying to get the other boys to accept him. His parents had died in a tragic accident, and so Sam was alone trying to find his place in life. Because he wasn't afraid to show his powers, the other boys didn't accept him, and he suffered from rejection. Maura, an evil girl who is controlled by Emperor Grum, took advantage of Sam's situation to trick him. Maura was a warrior turned young woman who had the power to create monsters from a drawing. With this power she created a monster which had the ability to turn people into toys. Maura tricks Sam into believing that she is his friend by talking to him through a doll. Mauras Monster, with Sam's help, manages to turn many people into dolls, and this is why the SPD Rangers think that Sam is evil, just like Maura. The Yellow Ranger realizes that Sam was not evil and went to find him to help him and get him out of Maura's evil and deception. The Yellow Ranger had several encounters with Sam. Due to his emotional situation, Sam can be easily deceived. After several battles and several encounters, Sam manages to trust the Yellow Ranger and helps the SPD Rangers to destroy Mauras Monster, as it was the only way to turn the dolls into real people again. In the end, Sam joins the SPD as a cadet and is happy to have new friends. Only 5 years after these events, Sam receives the Omega Ranger's powers and starts to become an SPD Ranger. After becoming an Omega Ranger, 10 years passed, and Sam had to travel back in time to the year 2025 to help the SPD Rangers defeat Emperor Grum. This is the first appearance of an Omega Ranger in the entire history of the franchise. When Sam traveled back in time, his human form was affected, so he could only appear as an Omega Ranger or turned into a sphere of light. When Sam appears, the Power Rangers were fighting Maura in her adult form since Emperor Grum had transformed her. At that moment, the Omega Ranger appeared, but the SPD Rangers did not know who he was. The Omega Ranger showed some of his powers, for example, super speed by catching all the laser beams that Mauras Monster had thrown at him. The Omega Ranger's speed is faster than the speed of light, which is why he can dodge bullets. This speed also allows him to travel through time, and he can activate it with his Omega Morpher. Other powers that the Omega Ranger acquires are super strength and super endurance, plus he brings a variety of technology from the future to help the Rangers. In the final battle against Emperor Grum, the Omega Ranger is sought out and taken back to the future by Nova Ranger. At that moment we can see his physical form as an adult. Although in Power Rangers SPD the Omega Ranger is the 7th Ranger to arrive, he is treated as a 6th Ranger. We all know that the 6th Ranger is like a special ranger who is always kind of separate from the team with different powers. In Power Rangers Super Megaforce it was shown that the Omega Ranger is a 6th Ranger because in an episode called The Power of 6, the Silver Ranger appears and has a vision where all the 6th Rangers give him their power, and among them is the Omega Ranger. So far, the last appearance of the Omega Rangers was in Power Rangers Dino Fury, only in images and not in the present. Since the comics and the TV series have many differences, it is not known if this Omega Ranger is the same as the Omega Rangers that appear in the comics. These Omega Rangers are not related to the SPD Rangers and use powers from nature. Also, these Omega Rangers were inactive for hundreds of years and are a group of several Rangers, unlike the SPD Omega Ranger who is only one. Another difference is their morpher, as the original Omega Rangers have a gauntlet to transform and have a transformation sequence. The SPD Omega Ranger has a unique morpher and has no transformation sequence. If you like the Omega Ranger, like this video, and subscribe to this channel to become an Omega Ranger.